What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome into the Pack-A-Day podcast here on YouTube. You know me, I'm Andy Herman. I am a writer and editor for Packer Report. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. So we witnessed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady win the Super Bowl. An impressive run that included beating Washington on the road, maybe not the toughest game in the world, but then going to New Orleans, beating Drew Brees, basically putting Drew Brees into retirement, beating Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, and then dismantling Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And if we're being real, I think that's probably the least likely scenario anyone was expecting. I think a close game that went to Tampa or the Chiefs would have been expected. I think if anyone would have had to guess if there was one team that was blowing out the other, I think most of us probably would have guessed that it was the Chiefs blowing out the Bucs. But that, of course, was not to be the case. And kudos, as much as it is a tough pill to swallow for many, kudos to Tom Brady on his seventh Super Bowl championship and Super Bowl ring, his fifth Super Bowl MVP, and he just does not seem to go away. He is consistently in the Super Bowl. He consistently wins Super Bowls, and certainly will go down as the most successful and arguably greatest quarterback to ever play the game. His defense, though, in this one, as has been in a lot of his games, that's not taking anything away from him, was absolutely incredible. And Patrick Mahomes has never in his college or NFL career not had his offense score a touchdown in a game. Tampa Bay limited the Chiefs to 9 points. It looked nothing like a Kansas City offense that was insanely explosive for the better half of the last two seasons when Patrick Mahomes has been in there. Yes, he was a little bit banged up in this game. No, I do not think it would have mattered. I think even perfect, pristine, 100% condition Patrick Mahomes still does not win this game. He was running around like a chicken with his head cut off because his offensive line could not contain the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pass rush. And I know that the cliche statement in this game is going to be that defense wins championships, which very much so. The better defense in this game absolutely won the championship, but this was trench warfare, and the team that dominated in the trenches on both sides of the football, eerily reminiscent of Packers Buccaneers from a couple weeks ago, won this game and won the Super Bowl. And what Tampa Bay was able to do to Kansas City's offensive line, which was missing basically everyone, didn't allow any opportunity for Patrick Mahomes to succeed in this game. He tried everything in his power, scrambled around, tried to pick up yards when he could. Obviously, his toe was not helping him out in any way, shape, or form, but this was a defense that was relentless. They had a great plan of attack against Tyreek Hill. They were able to use their fast safeties and linebackers to take out Travis Kelce, and nobody else, whether it be McCole Hardman, whether it be Byron Pringle, whether it be Sammy Watkins, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, nobody else was able to step up in this game. And it's tough not to say that this was, I want to give credit to Tampa Bay first, but Kansas City looked completely outcoached and outclassed in every way, shape, or form in this game. You would swear that they did not watch Green Bay's loss to Tampa Bay. And because they fell into a lot of the same traps that Green Bay fell into, getting away from running the football, basically staying stagnant in the pocket, making Rodgers and Mahomes throw a ton and not really going to anything else. Give Matt LaFleur credit compared to Andy Reid and this staff. They were not prepared for that Tampa Bay or Todd Bowles defense at all. And so much credit to Todd Bowles, who again went through Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes back to back to back and came out the victor in those three games. And Todd Bowles was just incredible through that run. And maybe he doesn't get another head coaching job because he definitely struggled in that role with the Jets. Everyone struggles with the Jets, so certainly some accident forgiveness there. But there is no doubt in my mind that he is the best defensive coordinator in football right now. What he did in the playoffs was absolutely incredible. And this is a perfect blend of matching talent with scheme. Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett on the edge of that 4-3 defense with Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea inside. And then those two behemoths eating blocks for Levante David, along with Devin White, who can flow sideline to sideline. That is huge. And then you've got physical, aggressive cornerbacks who have tons of speed, safeties who are playmakers. There's no weakness on that defense. And then, credit, this Tampa Bay front office as well for building a team that has very few flaws. I mean, Brady at quarterback, who just knows how to win football games, motivated team, get everyone on the same page. I mean, he was phenomenal over the course of the season, especially for age 43. Two running backs in Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, who, were a great 1-2 punch throughout this, especially the second half of the season. The wide receiver depth went on for days with Edwards and Godwin, Antonio Brown, Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller. I mean, it just kept going and going. An offensive line that was fantastic. It's Cameron Brate, Rob Gronkowski. They even were missing O.J. Howard, and they still had two really good tight ends. So credit so much to Tampa Bay for putting this roster together. And you look at what they've done over the course of the last, 12 months. I mean, Tom Brady and adding Tom Brady is obviously a huge part of this, but they franchised Shaq Barrett, which ended up being 100% the right call. They get Jason Pierre-Paul back on a 2-year deal, which was relatively, team friendly considering how he played, especially in this postseason. They sign Ndamukong Suh or re-sign him to another 1 year. Again, fairly team friendly deal considered, considering how he performed. They get Kevin Minter back. They sign Tom Brady. They trade for Rob Gronkowski. They pick up Joe Haeg as offensive line depth. They get Leonard Fournette and Antonio Brown in season. They draft Tristan Wirfs with their first-round pick, Antoine Winfield Jr. with their second-round pick, and then Tyler Johnson later on in the draft, I believe with a fourth. He was either fourth or fifth. I think it was a fourth-round pick. But, I mean, just a tremendous offseason for Tampa Bay. And we can talk about the big free agent signings and what they did to get this team over the top. But if you want to do that, if you want to go out and spend big money on those type of free agents, you have to have a young, cheap core of players that you can add those, expensive players to. And you look at what Tampa Bay had and what they did in the draft over the last 3 years. These are some of the names they added just in the last 3 years, just via the draft. Vita Vea, Ronald Jones Jr., Carlton Davis, Alex Kappa, Jordan Whitehead, Devin White, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean, Mike Edwards, Scotty Miller, Tristan Wirfs, Antoine Winfield, Tyler Johnson. That is an abundance of riches out of 3 back-to-back-to-back drafts. Now, Tampa Bay has been bad as of late, so they certainly get the benefit of drafting earlier in both the first, second, every round, but especially in the first, second, third rounds. They're getting a lot of top 100 picks, some premium selections, but a lot of teams do not pay it off with that level of success, and Tampa Bay did so at a very high level. So what you end up with is really some core players. Right? They already had Levante David there. They already had an O.J. Howard. I know he didn't play, but a Cameron Brate. They had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And they had a really nice set core of players. And then they had 3 years of just drafting out of their minds, including this year. And then you go and you add Gronk and Brady, Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette, and that entire group this offseason. Bring back 3 of the key front four, Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul, and Shaq Barrett. And what they did was nothing short of masterful. And that's how you end up with a team that's capable of winning the Super Bowl. So, tip of the cap to Tampa Bay for winning a Super Bowl and getting through really what was a very tough road and difficult journey to win that Super Bowl. Again, anytime you pick off Breeze, Rodgers, and Mahomes in the same Super Bowl, and what the other one was, Taylor Heineke, so add him in there too. But those 3 on a road to the Super Bowl, you've done something right. Just another ridiculous feather in the ridiculous cap of Tom Brady and what he's been able to accomplish. And going back to looking at that, what Green Bay did in that game against Tampa, it certainly stings a little bit more because the Chiefs looked very beatable in this game. And who knows what happens if it's a different team and Todd Bowles and that Tampa Bay defense get a ton of credit and maybe Kansas City throws a 40-burger up against the Packers defense. But this Chiefs team did not look ready. They did not look prepared. They did not look like themselves. This looks like an incredibly beatable Chiefs offense and defense. And you would just give anything for Rodgers and LaFleur and this team to have a shot at it. And it's that much more disappointing because of all the errors that Green Bay had in that game against Tampa Bay. They had a plethora of opportunities to get back in that game and to really just not shoot themselves in the foot in the first place. The fumble, the interception, the deep ball before halftime. I mean, we know all the plays, but just it's ridiculously tough to swallow again as you watch this Super Bowl and see how good Tampa Bay is. And Green Bay was in that game even with all of the mistakes that they made. You take some of those away, and it's not difficult to say that Green Bay should have won that game and certainly would have had a great chance against Kansas City. But alas, that is not meant to be. So what did we learn about this Tampa team and about the state of the NFL. As I kind of mentioned at the onset, this is a game that's built right now in the trenches. And I know the quarterbacks and the weapons on offense are in vogue and wanting to have as many playmakers as possible. And Tampa certainly had that as well, right? Let's not minimize, Gronk and Brait and Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Fournette, Ronald Jones, Tom Brady. Like they had, Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson. They had plenty of weapons on offense. But when you look at the Saints game, when you look at the Packers game, when you look at this Chiefs game especially, the difference for Tampa Bay was the trenches and what they did on both sides of the offense and defensive line. And, that's where I really think losing David Bakhtiari played such a huge part in this. And also the regression of Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith and them not playing at the level that they were playing at in 2019. If you get a really damn good Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith and a healthy David Bakhtiari, that changes everything. And it's really up to Green Bay. Preston Smith's going to be gone. David Bakhtiari is going to be coming back from injury. But it's up to Green Bay to really get the most out of their players on their offensive and defensive line and really continue to build that up. I've gone on the record. I still believe it to be the case. I believe Green Bay will go offensive line, offensive tackle specifically, but offensive line in their first pick in the draft. That's my bold prediction that's been out there for about a month now. Just based on where they're picking and what their long-term needs are and how they pick premium positions in the first round. Or what their first pick, I think that's going to be the direction that they ultimately end up going in, especially with Bakhtiari being hurt. Rick Wagner's probably gone. Billy Turner is probably on the last year of his deal. I think they'll probably move on in the next year or two. So they need long-term offensive tackle depth, and I think that's going to be a need that they address. But it's going to be up to Green Bay, Brian Gutekunst, and this coaching staff to get the most out of the players that they have because they still have David Bakhtiari. They've got Elton Jenkins. We'll see what happens with Corey Linsley, but they've got some really strong players along that offensive line. They've got Rashawn Gary, Zadarius Smith, Kenny Clark. This is a league that ultimately, at the end of the day, is still won in the trenches. And Green Bay has the ability to be damn good on both sides of the football on the offensive and defensive lines. The offensive line was phenomenal all season long, was awful against Tampa Bay, in large part due to David Bakhtiari not being in that game, but also because, Billy Turner, Rick Wagner, Elton Jenkins, Lucas Patrick all really, really struggled in that game. That can't happen again. And on the defensive side of the ball, Zadarius Smith, not himself at all in 2020, still made some big plays, but nowhere near the consistency that he did in the prior season. They need Rashawn Gary to continue to grow. They need Kenny Clark to play at really an all-pro level because he's capable of doing that. And then they need people to step up, whether it be a Jonathan Garvin, whether it be a Kingsley Keke, whomever. It doesn't matter at this point. They need players to step up, and they need to continue to address offensive line and defensive line. So and pass rusher. So I know you're going into this offseason as we start looking ahead, and we have a ton to break down, but as you're looking at these playmaking wide receivers or another tight end or a corner on the back end, which are all important, especially cornerback, we can definitely say that. This is still a game. At the end of the day, the Chiefs are Bashad Breeland and Snead and those type of corners, and they're in the Super Bowl. And their defense, I think, would have been good enough if their offense could have played, better in this game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, yes, they're good, but Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean, they're good players, but they're winning at the line of scrimmage. So don't be shocked. Don't be surprised if Green Bay continues to add in the trenches, because that's really where the state of the NFL has been for a while now, for being real. But that's where you ultimately win games. The in vogue statement is Super Bowls win championships, but the trenches is where that all begins. If you can pass protect, if you can run block, if you can stop the run, and you can rush the passer in the front, it just opens up everything for you. And that's how you have a Tampa Bay team that allows the Chiefs with Chris Jones and Frank Clark to barely get any pressure, and Zadarius Smith and Kenny Clark and those guys to not get any pressure. And it's what allows Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett and Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea and that whole group just to collapse pockets and get after the quarterback. That's why Tampa Bay won, and that's an area where Green Bay is going to have to continue to improve and get the most out of their players. Hope you hopefully enjoyed this episode more than you enjoyed the Super Bowl, because that was a boring Super Bowl. Hopefully that doesn't happen again anytime in the near future. We've got a long offseason ahead of us. New defensive coordinator for the Packers. Lots to go over this offseason. A draft, a major free agent class. Where's the salary cap going to be at? So Make sure to stick here every single day, 365 days a year. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't. If you're looking for more from me, I did today's audio version of the podcast. It was a much longer version. I covered a lot of the things that I just covered, but went into much greater detail on the Packers and what happened this past weekend. So make sure to check that out as well. That does it for me. Until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.